I'd like to welcome Mr. Adrian Hayes, who's here from the UK.
Good afternoon, Salam Alaikum, Pakistan.
When LLF asked me to make this introduction, I wondered what Hello magazine had in common with a mountain climber. But what I found really interesting in Adrian Hayes' work is that he's also looking at social media and how it's impacted people who climb mountains. I think all of you remember that picture of mountain climbers who stood on the summit of Everest after they'd climbed up. And I think during his presentation, he'll explain this particular aspect of what he has noticed and how social media has changed the way people present themselves to the world. Anyway, so if you have a death wish, if any of you have a death wish, what do? Well, if you have a death wish, you climb K2, and that's what Adrian Hayes did not once but twice, and he succeeded successfully in 2014. He's a well-known expeditioner. He's gone across the North Pole and the South Pole, and he's climbed Mount Everest, and he's crossed the Arabian Desert, and he has a list of achievements, litany of achievements over the years. I'm not going to spend any more time making this introduction. I'm going to hand over to Adrian Hayes, who will make the presentation now.
Thank you, Amna. Good afternoon. We're going to start with a short video, which hopefully works, but we haven't been able to test it yet. So let's start with, yes, it does. Some volume, please. This shows me as not the greatest explorer in the world.
You okay? All right. Yeah. It's good because I've got it on film. Arctic explorer bites the dust within 30 seconds of attempting Stairway to Heaven. Anybody who sponsored him, I get your money back now.
You got another take on that? Box in the pack there.
You got books in, have you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh no.
No. I think this will work. So broken the rock. We're all okay, yeah. Just
okay, right, that's all right.
Testing the equipment, testing the.
Yeah. It did look rather embarrassing, I must say. Is it?
Ouch! There we go. So never take yourself too seriously. Can I have some lights back on, please? So you can see my ugly, frostbitten face. So it's great to be back in Pakistan. I was here in December, and I am one of Pakistan's greatest friends. Wait, I can't see you! Because I promote the parts of your country that the rest of the world, particularly Western Europe, don't see. We see the bad news, okay? We see the poverty, the Taliban and terrorism and various things of this. Even the cricket isn't that good these days. But anyway, I show some of the other real delights of your beautiful country. So it's great to be back here. So what I'm going to do can I have a little bit light on the audience? Just a little bit light so I can see who's falling asleep. Can I have a little bit light? I can see. Is that okay? Good. So what I'm going to do today, literally for the next 40 minutes, is speak. I've got a few more videos about what I do, about how I became a professional adventurer, the story of K2, and then I've got another great video to transition, then we're going to have some Q&As with Amna from Hello Magazine. I've been in there once before, and then questions to yourselves as well, and then a really great thing to finish off with. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, let's just see if this is working. Yes, it is. This is me this morning when I got into Lahore. A bit cold this morning. So let me just tell you what I actually do to start with. What I don't say is I don't come to you today claiming to be Britain's greatest alpinist, Britain's greatest mountaineer, okay? Because I'm an all-rounder. I do mountains, jungles, polars, desert, oceans. I've done that a lot, and I've been doing it since I was 16 years of age, so literally 20 years now, so it's a long time. Work that one out? Anyway, so I'm an all-rounder. The second thing is, adventuring is only one part of my work. I do a whole raft of different aspects, many different hats. And the third thing is the book, which I'm going to speak about why I'm here. I didn't do K2 with the book already ready to go and the documentary ready. No, I was asked to write this book 2 years after I climbed K2, for the reasons I explain in a minute. So what I do, a variety of things. Let me just go back one, sorry. Let me go back one. So I am an adventurer. I have been doing it since I was 16. I'm also a keynote speaker. I'm not very good, but I'm the best in my price range. But I do this, I speak to companies around the world. I don't call it motivational speaking, keynote speaking, because there's many, many aspects I do. I do leadership, team development, and personal development work, longer workshops around the world. I'm very passionate about this world. I speak on sustainability, as the next slide I was going to show. I'm very, very passionate about this concept. Now, you all know, I'm going to spend 2 minutes to explain this, because you all know climate change is the big cause of the world. Every day there is something about climate change in the papers. Greta Thunberg, Extinction Rebellion, United Nations, everything like this. What they don't get, and I've seen climate change with my own eyes, feet, and torso. I've got very, very wet crossing the Arctic Ocean, crossing the length of Greenland. I've seen it. But the problem with what no world leader gets, no environmental organization, or very few don't get, is climate change is one thing in a whole interlinking thing in our environment. It's only one factor. But you can't solve problems with these three pillars. Everything we do falls into these three pillars. Everything we do in one has an effect on the other two, and you can't solve problems in one without looking at all three together. That is sustainability. And the problem with climate change is they're just looking at this in here, climate change in one aspect, without looking at the bigger picture. And if you really want to solve not just climate change, but all our environmental issues on our planet, you've got to look at these two things. How much we spend, our economy, and how many of us to spend it. Yes, economic growth and population are the two inconvenient truths that affect everything on our planet, okay? And these things, and I look at your dear country, your great country, 193 million people. It is a lot of people to absorb for a country, and I sort of, there's ways and means we can do this, but it's about education and getting this whole thing together. So that's sustainability. No world leader speaks about it. I'm also an advisor on the Mars One project. There's a few Mars projects in the air these days, Telstar or Elon Musk, NASA, various things. This was the European consortium, which was meant to be the one-way mission. Does anyone want to join me? One-way mission to Mars, you're not coming back. There we go, a few volunteers. Okay. Well, it's not going to happen for another 20, 30 years. I might be in a wheelchair then. But no, the concept was about there. But they brought me on for my lessons in team development and my experience on long camping trips around the world, long expeditions. So that's what I did. I've got a couple of books out there as well. I do a few documentaries and a few things like this. Now, how did I get into the adventure world? Well, I left school at 16 years of age. Can you leave school in Pakistan at 16? You have to stay till 18. Yeah, same as UK now. I left at 16 with 5 GCSEs, the exams you take at 16. So I didn't have a very great academic career. And I left, I disliked school. I just decided to go adventuring. So I went around the world. I worked in Norway for 6 months, New Zealand for 6 months. I climbed mountains, rock climbing, ocean sailing. I learned kayaking, skydiving, sub-aqua. I was doing the whole lot for an amazing 6 or 7 years, working as a farmer's laborer, a bricklayer's laborer. I trained to become a bricklayer as well. So doing all these jobs. Then I thought one day, I was also a singer and guitarist in a rock band. I'm going to spare you today. But I thought after 7 years of this, I thought, how do I get paid to do this? I thought, great, I'll join the British Army. Good idea. So I joined the British Army, and I wanted to join the Special Air Service, the SAS, which you would have, the renowned Special Forces. So I went in the back door and had 2 years with them, trained as a paramedic, did this. And then I joined the Gurkhas, went to Sandhurst, and joined the Gurkhas of Nepal, the mountain troops of Nepal, and served an amazing time, served in Brunei, in Borneo, Hong Kong, Borneo, various for about 8 years. Speak Nepalese fluently, so I learnt one language. Then I did a secondment to Oman. I'm sure a few of you here have been down to Salalah in southern Oman, and this is where I learned Arabic to go there. So this is when I speak Salam Alaikum and all the rest of it. I learned Arabic 20 years ago and served down there. And so I became an expert jungle operator with the Gurkhas, an expert desert operator. And this was my first book, which we did a crossing of the Arabian desert from Salalah to Abu Dhabi, in the footsteps of famous British explorer Wilfred Thesiger, and a most amazing journey that I did. So that was it. I was in the army. I left the army, did an MBA. So I got no A-levels, no degree, but a master's degree, which worked that one out. I then went into business and sold Airbuses around Middle East and West Asia. PIA were my customer for a little while, so selling Airbuses. But the adventuring side carried on. This was walking to the South Pole back in 2007. And as I said, I was doing everything because I left Airbus in 2006 to go as a professional adventurer, speaker, and a business coach. And one of my this was Everest in 2006, one of my great claims to fame was I was the first person to fly an Airbus A380 model from the top of Everest. Airbus, who I worked for, asked me, Adrian, they're French, okay, is it possible to take the A380 to the Everest for a picture for the Airbus website? So I took it at base camp, and then you know what happens next, they asked me to take it to the top of Everest. That was the top of Everest. So, yeah, what a stupid thing to do. You struggle. I mean, the biggest single problem climbing big mountains is, yes, I couldn't get oxygen in my lungs, and I'm having to try and blow this model up. Okay. Ridiculous. I mean, what? And they didn't even pay me. But anyway, this couldn't work. They couldn't put that on the Airbus website. But Photoshop Editor does a marvelous thing, and that went on the site a few weeks later. So there we go. So there's a little bit of background to you. As I said, I've been doing. Okay, that's enough. Okay, thank you very much. So a little bit of background. Now let's go on to the main reason why I'm here. K2, your little mountain up in the on the border of Pakistan and China. Okay, so now let me give a little. Education about the mountains in the world, okay? The big mountains in the world, okay, are all in the Greater Himalayas, from Burma. This is, have we got a laser pointer? Have we got a laser pointer? No. Anyway, from Burma to India, to Bhutan, Nepal, up through India again, Pakistan, China on the other side. All the big mountains in the world are there. When I say big, I'm talking about huge. Let me just put it in another perspective. To go outside of the mountains in the Himalayas, the next highest mountain in the world, outside of the Greater Himalayas, is in Argentina. And that is about the 160th highest mountain in the world. Some people say to me, everyone knows the highest mountain is Everest. Most people know K2 is the second. You sometimes ask people, what's the third highest mountain in the world? They say, Kilimanjaro in Africa. That's a little hill, okay? But it's you get the picture. Everything big is in the Himalayas. And the amazing thing about altitude is the highest permanent human habitation in the world is actually in the Andes in South America, 5,300 meters. Above that, we can't survive, okay? So 5,300 meters, which incidentally is the base camp of Everest, you can survive for indefinitely. 6,000 meters, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks before you start to lose appetite. 7,000 meters, you start to feel very ill after 2 or 3 days. 8,000 meters, you've got about 24 hours. You're in the so-called death zone. And there's 14 mountains above 8,000 meters in the world. They're all in Nepal, China, or Pakistan. You've got 5 of them here. And of these ones, of the 14, this one is widely regarded as the hardest challenge in high-altitude mountaineering. Now, why is this? Now, you will know much that many audiences don't across the world. Well, why is this? Well, K2 is firstly, let me compare it with Everest. Okay. Everest has been summited by, anyone know how many people have summited Everest now? 1,500? Thousands? It's about 7,500 people now. Who knows how many have climbed K2? 150. Very precise. It's about 410, 415, something like that. It's a massive difference. Okay, now the reason is, K2 is way further north. You know, we're 1,500 kilometers further north than Everest. So the weather's much, much worse. The weather's always bad on K2, right? That's a good thing. Consequently, the snow conditions, the snow depths are really, really deep. Imagine trying to climb a mountain wading through this deep snow. It's a steep, steep technical climb. Steep ice, steep rock. It's got horrendous avalanche dangers, terrible rockfall dangers, and so altitude, I put this together with altitude, you get this gargantuan challenge. And that's the reason not only have so few people climbed it, but so many people have been killed trying to climb it. And you would have heard the statistic, for every 4 in history who've reached the top, 1 has died trying, 25% summit to death ratio. So its history is horrendous. It's a real terrible history ever since the Italians climbed it in 1954. So most years nobody gets up there. It's had terrible decision making, real bad luck, and terrible fatality rates. So with all this combined, why would you want to climb this mountain? If you've got a 1 in 4 chance of being killed if you get to the top, why would you want to do this? Anyone think anyone tries this as a bit stupid? Yes, we are a bit stupid. But I'm going to come back to that at the end. But, you know, go back, sorry. Courage is, stop. Courage is not the absence of fear, rather the willingness to face it. And you certainly learn by stepping into fear. Okay, so there's a little bit about the history. Now, the Pakistan I preach around the world and say, folks, this is the Pakistan you don't read about. This is Skardu. How many people here have been to Skardu? Most of you, yeah. Lovely place. I mean, just a lovely, lovely town with such lovely, lovely people. As all Pakistanis are, aren't you? Thank you. Can I have a drink of water after that? Is there a bottle of water I can just have? I'm getting thirsty after all this emotional outburst. A little bottle of water, thank you. So, a lovely, lovely place. And this is the trek into K2 base camp. Has anyone actually done this? Quite a few of you. It's not an easy walk, is it? It's a tough, tough challenge along the Baltoro Glacier. But there's no tea houses, there's no recognized campsites, no McDonald's, no Starbucks, nothing. It's just, you know, it's remote and it's rugged. But that's what makes it so, so special. Now, the other thing is, you've been doing this for about 8 days to get to K2 base camp. Yes, could you just open it, please? Actually, I'll have it. This is the first sight I had of K2, because you cannot see the mountain until the very, very last day of the trek to base camp. So enjoy this little minute video of what my first reactions on seeing this mountain was.
We're at Concordia, about 4,500 meters, and this is the first view you get of K2. Now, K2's been visible for about the last 5 minutes, but I haven't set my eyes on it. I've saved this moment to be recorded. My teammate Al Hancock is taking the film, so I'm going to glimpse to my left. I'll have the first look of this mountain. Okay, so let me have a look. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is pretty impressive. And it looks incredibly steep from here. In fact, it looks incredibly steep. How are we going to climb that?
One step at a time.
How do we get up that thing? Anyway, mountains look much steeper at distance. When you get a bit close, they look less steep. So I found, but that's a pretty impressive sight.
Yeah, mountains look less steep at distance than when you get close. That was trying to convince ourselves that this is sensible. Anyway, but that's what you're looking at. And literally, I did turn around and went, oh my goodness. But that's the camps you've got. And you know, the whole way you climb these big mountains, unless you're doing it in a way called alpine style, is you trek into base camp, 8 days, set up base camp, then do what's called a rotation. Go up to camp 1, take tents, sleeping bags, equipment, supplies, set up that camp 1, maybe do a reconnaissance up to camp 2, and then come down again. Okay, so that's about 4 days. Then when the weather's good again, you'll do another one, camp 1, camp 2, set up things at camp 2, and maybe do a reconnaissance up to camp 3. So you've set up 2 camps and maybe a third, then come down again. And then you're ready for the final push for the summit. Now, the reason you're doing this is to set up these camps, but also because of altitude. You've got to acclimatize, okay? And there's 2 real bad conditions. Has anyone here had altitude sickness? Okay, 1 or 2. Real chronic headaches, or you can vomit. It's debilitating. But if it gets worse, you can get something called high altitude cerebral edema. That's HACE, high altitude fluid on the brain, or something called HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema, fluid in the lungs. But there's another condition that, and please forgive me for being honest, but altitude makes you pass wind as well, and that's called HAF, high altitude flatulence expulsion, all right? Now that may not kill you, but when you're stuck in a tent like this for 4 days with a teammate who has very acute flatulence, it can be rather serious as well. So this was at Camp 2. Camp 2, so go back one, right there, Camp 2, 6,700 meters, that is it. There's no flat space. You've got to build this camp on the remnants of debris and snow and everything like this. It's horrendous, frankly. It's pretty ridiculous. So you've got that, and this is some of the climbing, the rock climbing you've got to do, technical, rock walls, and some of the ice walls you've got. It's serious, okay? Now, just briefly, I'm not going to tell the whole story, what happened on my first attempt, 2013. Really a year's training, preparation, planning for this. I mean, physical training, I run, I swim, I ride bikes, I rock climb, and I go to the gym. That's my general base layer of fitness. That's before breakfast, and we get some real work done. But no, when you've got to specialize, you get climbing mountains. That's what makes you fit for climbing mountains. So about a year's preparation planning, 2013, everything went wrong. And to cut a long story short, we lost 2 teammates to an avalanche at Camp 3, wiped them out. Yet more statistics on the terrible history of K2. It aborted the expedition completely, but this is one quote that you have to remember when you do these mountains. Getting to the top is optional, getting back down again is mandatory. You've got to get back down. And getting down is where most of the accidents happen because you're starved of oxygen, you make mistakes, weather closes in. This is the real problems you've got. Now, I was crestfallen because I haven't normally failed in things in my life. I do these big goals and achieve them. I couldn't understand what this is all about. But the only way, and personal crisis at home as well, which is another story I'll come to in a second, but I went back the second year, and let's go back the second year. This time we had a much bigger team, more resources, and the second year, unlike the first year, we had great weather. And so, basically, when you climb this mountain, you're climbing these camps all on the way, but it really all comes down to the final summit push. The final, after you've been there 7 weeks, you see a weather window, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4 in 4 days, and then this is the view from Camp 4 to the summit, okay? This is when you'll leave at about 8 p.m. at night time to get to the top sometime the next day, to be able to get back down to this camp by the safety of the light of the next day. Now that climb from here, I can't show this laser, but it goes up this gully through the middle here, underneath these ice seracs up here. This would take us 18 hours. 18 hours to do this. with hazardous, steep rock, steep ice, with avalanche dangers, everything, that all these things, and altitude. And apart from, apart from that, I was really, really suffering from having food poisoning. So it made the whole trip absolute agony. And it's hard to describe. I always say these things, that nobody really understands what it's like to experience anything unless you've been there yourself. Ladies, those of you who've had children, can you explain to your husbands what it's like to give birth? No. And husbands, they sympathize. You don't know what it's like. Has anyone here been diagnosed with cancer? We all know people who have. What that's like, or chemotherapy, what it's like to go through that. If anyone's been through divorce, has anyone been bankrupt with business? Has anyone lost their parents, their children? All these experiences, it's only when you experience them yourself you can really, truly understand what it's like. And it's the same with climbing K2. You've been preparing for this, for my case, 3 years. You're putting yourself to the elements, extreme physical endurance and physical stress to climb up a mountain. Terrible weather, cooking snow, making tents, getting cold, getting hot, all these things. And this final night, coming to the next day where you're climbing this mountain, this is about 8,500 meters. You're the highest human beings on the whole planet. But you're not sort of standing around taking the view, taking pictures, because you're so focused, not just on the ice in front of you, but you've got an all-round vision. Your senses actually seeing about avalanche dangers, what's going on, weather. So in this completely different zone. And it's quite ethereal, spiritual, you might even say, to say it's in a place we don't belong. We can't survive. And yet you're pushing yourself to reach the top of this mountain, which eventually, on the 26th of July 2014, at 3:15 p.m. in the afternoon, I reached the top of K2. Now, what do you do when you reach the top? Firstly, you know you're going to reach the top about an hour or so before, because the weather's good, you're feeling okay, so you know you're going to get there. But those final few steps, you take up the top, and you're pinching yourself. It's surreal. But you can't sort of break down in tears and hugs and, I did it, Mum. I'm on the, because you've got to get down again. So literally, you'll see in the video in a second, you get to the top, you get a quick bear hug, quick picture, quick call home on the satellite telephone. Reception's quite good because you're quite near the satellites. And then a quick video, and then you've got to get down. Let me tell you, that picture, about 30 seconds after that came up, the clouds came in, the whiteout, and coming down off that mountain, putting your whole life on a thin piece of rope, abseiling down, and it's whiteout, you can't see where you are. It was so focus. But challenges make you discover things about yourself you never really knew. So this is one of the reasons I do it. So that was my story of K2. Now, before we go to the video and questions, I want to tell you how this book came about. How about? Because I didn't plan, as I said at the beginning, to write a book. K2's been done before. About 7 other Brits had done it before. So it wasn't a first. It wasn't a new route. It wasn't a unclimbed thing. It was something, just one of my many goals that I wanted to challenge myself. But it was the daughter of one of the guys who got killed in 2013, experienced mountain guide, got killed, and his son actually experienced, and his daughter asked me to write a book. So I started writing this book about the journey. But again, I wasn't. Can someone open this for me? Sorry, just because I want to hold it when I speak to you, because it's probably the proudest piece of work that I've done. What I wanted to do was not just write a book about mountaineering. I said, let's bring in all aspects of my other life. As a as a leadership, as a personal coach, as a sociologist. I'm sort of more into this, and let's really bring a whole load of other lessons into this book and make it a book that is really attractive to all people, not just mountain lovers. And so to give you some of the things I bring into this thing, yeah, that's okay. And Amna said it right at the beginning, I ask, yeah, there you go, just, you're gonna hold it for me, thank you, okay. It's yours, okay, very cheap price, about 10,000 rupees and it's yours, okay. Okay, that's fine, yeah. So what, one of the things is I actually go to the crux of why do we do these big things? Now mountaineers will say, we climb for the freedom, the view, the focus, the nature, all these things. This is correct. But you can get that going to any little hill outside Islamabad or in the mountains. You don't do these big things for this purpose. We're going to read something. I've probably got a little less time. No, I think we're going to, do you mind? I think I'll crack on. We'll do that thing at the end, yeah. Yeah, I think just because we ran a bit of time. So, but you can hold it there. Okay. So what I go straight, why we do these big things, we do it for something called significance. All right? We do it because K2 is the gold medal of mountaineering. It's the hardest challenge in mountaineering in the world. We do it for significance. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Now, let me tell you something. Because what has changed, and Amna sort of, what has changed though, this internal significance, which I've been doing it since I was 16, personal goals, self-respect, self-worth, living a full life, achieving excellence, achieving everything I can be done in life. That's been changed by social media because we're now in this world of the Instagram. And that is more and more people are now doing these big things to basically, look where I am. Look what I've achieved. Look at me. And mountain climbing is only the tip of the iceberg of every single thing I see in our world. We've gone this social media epidemic of recognition, respect, attention, and sympathy. We're in an epidemic on it, and we don't even realize it. And that explains, and Amna said it, Everest in 2006, that was the summit ridge on the last thing of there. That was this last year. Everyone there to get that feeling, because social media has made us feel that we need to show we're worthy. We need to show that we too are worthy. Look at me, please. Give me my likes and my recognition. We're in this epidemic, and it's created all sorts of distortions. So I speak about that in the book in a big way. I speak about how it is so incredible to get away from social media and internet overuse. We're in this, again, this world of technology overdose. We're bombarded with information, and the scientists are discovering our brains are actually changing shape. We've lost the ability of focusing, contemplation, deep thinking, because we're just shallow tasks, we're all these whole things. Youngsters, you two boys, I can't see. I do a lot of work with schools. I've never seen school kids so distracted, so they cannot even listen because they want to look at their phones. When you go on expedition, you get away from that. And your observation, your awareness, your antennas, your critical thinking, problem solving goes like it's on steroids. It's in another frequency. And, if you look, this is a literary festival, books like The Alchemist, yes? The Celestine Prophecies, talk about this different frequency you could be on. That's what it's like on these trips. Coming back down to the so-called real world, it's like, get me out of here. Get me back to Skardu. Anyway, that's what it's like. And I speak about teamwork because no matter, I've done all these things with different teams, a lot of things my own, but you rely on so much with the teamwork. And it amuses me because companies pay so little respect to teamwork in their organizations. And yet it's the most critical thing to achieve a high-performing team. And this is one of the quotes I love. I'm a member of a team, I rely on that team. I defer to it and sacrifice for it because the team, not the individual, is the ultimate champion. Okay? Finally, and I talk about loads of things, risk and reward and gut instinct. And I talk about what it's like being up there. And I gave a little brief thing just a few minutes ago, but it is surreal. That is sunrise over China. Very, very few people will get to see this sight. And it's different than looking out of an aircraft window, but it is surreal. and you look down on the world below, and you think, really? You know, what really matters to me up that height is my daughter, my friends, my family. It's not the flash car, or how much money I've got, or all these things, or all the conflict there. You really have a real sense of enlightenment when you're up there, when you've put yourself into the face of death and you've nearly killed yourself. So that's what it's actually like, but it's a view you'll never, ever forget. So with that, everything more, and that's what this book is as much a book about human development, real society, the world we live in is the story of climbing K2. And before we go to questions, I'm going to show a short 3-minute video of the K2 story behind it. Enjoy this. Kids, don't try this, please, okay? Don't tell your mum you want to climb K2, please. All right, enjoy the video. Go back. Can you take the next, that's the slide. Can you just do that slide? Just press the slide. What's happened? Just press the clicker. No, go one back. Go one back. That's the one. Right, okay, well, let me try and fix this out. Could we just perhaps do some questions now whilst we do that? But thank you very much for listening. We've got time for questions now. Amna's going to come up. Is that working? Yeah, okay.
Is it coming?
I don't know.
I have a question for you, Adrian.
There's no flat space.
There is no camp at 7,000. There is no Camp 4.
Reporting live from K2 Base Camp on the soap opera of the year. The Bold and the Beautiful was never as dramatic as this.
An avalanche just came down the Cezanne route and has come straight across.
Too drastic. It's too high.
Thank you very much.
Adrian, thank you for a fabulous presentation. I have a question before we hand the mic over. Was there a time when you thought you were not going to make it, or were there many times when you thought that you were not going to come down again?
I think something goes like the athletes call it when you're in the zone. Have you ever heard that saying? There's a flow of mind, body, spirit, and you sort of get into this zone and you feel like you're going to achieve it. I didn't have that zone in 2013. And I always think that life must be lived forwards, but can only be understood backwards. If I really look back on 2013, I think maybe I was complacent, maybe not fit enough, whereas 2014, much more completely zoned out. You know, that was the way it was. So, yeah, on 2014, I felt we were going to do it.
That's great. Questions, please?
Well, first of all, thank you, Adrian, for your time.
Speak up, man.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
My question is, it's the journey that excites you, not the destination, actually. What do you feel about that?
Do you know what? The best parts of climbing K2 is that trek into base camp. You know, you leave Skardu, you go to a village called Ascoli, shorts, t-shirt, music on the headphones, beautiful scenery, you're away from social media, and that is the most enjoyable part of it all. But of course you're going in, you've got a goal ahead of you, but yes, it is about the destination, not the journey, not the destination, because the destination's only 5 minutes on the top of K2, it's the whole 2 months that really makes it all come together.
Thanks. Hi, Adrian. We met at the airport this morning.
Yes, hi, Victor.
Fantastic. Can you tell me at what point, firstly, normally how many people are in your team, 4 or 5? And at what point would you take that terrible decision if one of your team members can't go on? Would you all have to abort? Or if indeed you've lost the team members? And then when, I mean, we see all these people going up Everest, do they take oxygen? Because there's the going up with oxygen or without oxygen is also a sort of a debate in mountaineering, I understand.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'll take the second one first. So yes, most people would use oxygen. I use oxygen. I climbed Everest without it, and my brain cells, I lost 5 million brain cells. I mean, and so it's lovely being in Islamabad today, but I'm sure it hasn't affected me too bad. It's a joke. That was a joke. Anyway, but that's the first thing. But the second thing, I've had teammates of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The critical thing is we have an agreement. If anyone's sick, injured, or gets killed even, what do we want to do? And so everyone buys into this thing, because I wouldn't want, if I had a ingrown toenail, I wouldn't want to put the expedition at risk. I'd say, carry on, folks. You've got to look after yourself. So we have these agreements to start with.
Hi, over here. To your right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you spoke about sustainability and environmental conservation. Isn't there a criticism that adventure tourism and mountaineering itself have led a lot to the deterioration of the ecosystem? Especially, I think, on Everest, there's so many sort of amateur climbers, and the levels of debris and, the damage that is done. How do you justify that in sort of the larger scheme of things with your goals on sustainability?
Yeah, is a metaphor for the world, okay? So K2, the small numbers that climb K2, the mountain can absorb it. Can absorb the waste, it can absorb the small damage, because there's only 20, 30, 40, 50. Everest, there's about 1,000 last year. It can't sustain that numbers. That's a metaphor for the world. The world can sustain 5 billion people. It cannot sustain 10 billion. Simply a game of numbers. So that's how I relate to it. But we're always conscious. We take all my rubbish back. I take all my rubbish back with me. I'm very conscious about not leaving the mountain in any way degraded. So, but others perhaps are not so strict. I'll take that as the last question. Okay.
Mr. Hayes, one hears about the Sherpas who provide support and I believe some assistance to the climbers who climb Everest. Is there such a tribe or a group or a clan who live around K2 and who do provide the same kind of service? And how would you rate them and their expertise and their ability to help?
Yeah, very, very happy to answer. Some of the porters, and again, these expeditions create such an economy to Baltistan. These porters carrying these enormous weights and they're just speeding off. These are so fit guys, amazingly, the Balti. And several of them have become what's called HAPs, high altitude porters. They are very, very talented, some really, really strong Pakistani Sherpas. What Pakistan doesn't have right now is strength in numbers. The Sherpas have been doing this for so many, many years. In Pakistan, it's quite new. But the talent is right there. Some hugely strong, talented HAPs, as we call them. Very much so.
Excuse me. Hi, over here. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you for the talk. As somebody who's very passionate about the great outdoors, I'm very grateful that I discovered everything that the experiences I've had are in common with somebody like you. So, two questions. A, how do you find that middle ground between getting the teamwork aspect right and between still having sort of a personal experience? And B, if you're not supposed to sort of pursue formal training for mountaineering, what's a mediocre kind of a mountain for somebody, a starter level mountain for somebody who maybe wants to?
I didn't hear the second question very well, Mike's, but the first thing, how important is the team dynamics? Yes?
Yeah, where do you find that balance between the team dynamics and the thing being a personal experience for you as well?
Very simple thing. I've been on expeditions with highly experienced people, but on an expedition team, everything is for the sake of the team. Personal interest comes secondary to the team, and not all teams have that. It's self-sacrifice for that team. That's the first one. The second question was, I didn't hear what it was.
If somebody's not able to actually pursue mountaineering formally,
Look, the great outdoors, the great adventure. I said the rock climbing is an amazing sport. Have you got any gyms in Lahore, rock climbing gyms?
No.
And it's a fantastic...
We have rock climbing.
Rock climbing, yeah, well, fantastic sport. You're in your own world. When you're going for this hold in a gym, you think of nothing else. You don't think of anything. That's a great venture. Or else I think on the sea or the lakes there's a great... I know there's not too many around here, but I think that's a way... I think, to be honest, and I'm speaking to the young folks here, I think we all need a bit of nature in our lives, particularly as we're so addicted to our screens now, and nature has the answers to all. And we used to say, leave nothing but footprints, take nothing but pictures. I'm now saying to people, look, the pictures, just take one or two and then actually absorb it and enjoy it. Don't be obsessed with taking that picture of you on this side of this mountain here for the Instagram post. So I think nature has the answers to everything. I see the gentleman in the middle.
How do you know that you are ready for to climb a mountain like K2? And how do you know that? And second question is it more mental or physical to climb a mountain?
How you know you're ready is basically, this is where experience comes in. Look, I've been doing it since I was 16. I know my body very, very well. And I said to Amna earlier, I think even on hindsight, even 2013, although I was super, super fit, I question whether I was fit enough. 2014, I was like this. So I said it earlier, you get into this zone and you have to put the blinkers on. You have to put the blinkers on. You cannot go on these mountains with problems with your partner, your wife, husband, financial problems, your companies, but you can't go with these things because if you're like this, you get distracted, you might get killed by a rock on the head. You get in this complete blinkered mindset. It's selfish, but it's also self-preservation. You've got to do it. So that was it. You sort of know when you're ready, and I train brutally to do these big things. Right now, I'm not at the peak of fitness right now, but the next challenge, whatever that is, which I'll answer the last question, I'll get back into that zone.
So we have time for one last question, Tapu.
Do you think that...
Oh, young girl.
That's the last question.
Do you think that all the time preparing for the climbing of the mountain and like all the time on the mountain was worth for 5 minutes on the summit?
Good question.
What a good question. How old are you?
12.
What a great question for a 12-year-old. Give her a round of applause for that. Okay. I think it's not, as what that gentleman said earlier, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But it comes back to why I do this. I put a year, 2 years into this. Rightly or wrongly, it's part of what makes me up. I've been doing it since I was young. At your age, I had pictures on my wall of polar explorers. And I wrote down my goals. I want to be a polar explorer. I want to climb Everest. I want to join the SAS. I wrote these things down because I was fascinated by it, and they all came true. So it's part of who I am. I don't do it to say, look what I've done. There's nothing conquering about myself. You've got to be very humble and humility about this. You don't conquer a mountain, you just conquer a part of yourselves.
Adrian, thank you so much. Thank you.
Finale to finish off with.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, pictures, yes.
Okay, so Adrian has a finale to show you to finish off.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to take questions more, and I'll be signing the books down at Liberty Books just downstairs on the right side. But just to finish with, can I just have the microphone? Just to finish with, I thought I'd show some pictures from the book. And there's 2 lyrics of this book. There's 2 song lyrics that I wrote out, which are very, very special to me. The one after the first year, 2013, when I got on the aircraft from Islamabad, absolutely distraught. We'd failed, we'd lost 2 teammates, and it was horrible. And this song came up on my iPhone, and I just went, tears gushing down my eyes. And the second song was a song, it's by the band Coldplay, and I heard this a few years ago. And it basically talks about an experience, relationship, or something in your life that's no longer past, it's past in the history, but every time you think of it, it gives you this extra special glow. And I think K2 on many levels, it's a part of my history, but it really casts a shadow on everything I always do. So enjoy a few pictures of the book to the song of Everglow.
Well, they say people come, they say people go. This particular diamond was extra special. And though you might be gone, and the world may not know, still I see a celestial. And I should, but I can't let you go. But when I'm cold, I'm cold. Yeah, when I'm cold, there's a light that you give me when I'm in shadow. There's a feeling within me, an everglow. Like brothers in blood, or sisters who ride. Yeah, we swore on that night we'd be friends till we died. But the changing of winds and the way waters flow, life is short as the falling of snow. And I'm gonna miss you, I know. But when I